Welcome to our presentation on making sense of sensory processing. This is part 5, Strategies to Help at School. My name's Holly Sprake-Hill. I'm one of the children's occupational therapists with the ISCAN team. This module will provide strategies to help with sensory sensitivities at school and help you learn to be a sensory detective in the school environment. Let's have a quick recap. So, sensory processing refers to our ability to take in the sensory information from the world around us. Our brains then organise that information and turn it into a meaningful response. We have 8 senses. They are hearing, taste, smell, sight, sometimes called vision, touch, which is sometimes called tactile, our sense of proprioception, which is where our body is in the space around it, our vestibular sense, which is our sense of movement, and our sense of interoception, which is what's going on inside our body, for example, needing to use the toilet or feeling hungry. Our brains can be over-responsive, under-responsive, or need to seek out sensory stimulation. And sensory sensitivities, whether they're over-responsive or under-responsive, can impact upon our behaviour, our learning, and our ability to play. Sensory processing and everyday activities. To complete the activities we need and want to do, our brains have to take the information from our senses and turn it into an action. Physical and mental health and developmental conditions, so things like autism or dyslexia or dyspraxia or cerebral palsy, can all impact how our senses are processed and how we regulate our feelings and emotions related to this. We're going to talk a little bit more about regulation, but if we struggle to process our senses, we can struggle to do everyday activities. So what sort of sensory sensitivities might you see at school? Well, all children and young people are, of course, individuals and will be very different. But some of the commonly seen issues are things such as fidgeting and struggling to stay still on a chair or on carpet time. They may get muddled when getting dressed for PE and struggle to do the task independently. They may have difficulties moving from one activity to another. They could find using the toilet or washing their hands or the sequence of how to wash their hands confusing. They may really thrive with routine and structure and love to know what comes next. They may have differences at lunchtime using cutlery or struggling to stay tidy. They may have difficulties organising their equipment. You may see children be very boisterous or be very sensitive to touch, or in some cases uncoordinated. They may dislike having their feet off the ground or dislike using the PE equipment. They may be very creative thinkers and very imaginative, or they may have difficulties with handwriting and fine motor skills. So how should you support sensory sensitivities at school? Well, if you remember in the last presentation, we talked about being a sensory detective. So here's where you get to use your detective skills. Be curious and ask what is happening for that child and what is the environment like that they're in. What sensory sensitivities are impacting the child? Remember, the child could be over or under responsive to sensory stimulus, or they may be seeking sensory stimulus. What sort of changes might you be able to make to the environment around them, the task, or what might help them? When we think about sensory regulation at school, we're always looking for the just right challenge. Effective regulation means that child is ready to learn. So if we think about sensory regulation as a continuum, some children will be under-responsive, some will be over-responsive to sensory stimulus, but in the middle is the just right level, and that's where all the strategies are hoping to get our children to the just right level. Many students need help to get to their just right level. Do you remember in the last presentation we spoke about proprioception? Proprioception is our body's way of knowing where it is in the space around it. There are lots of different activities that can help with proprioceptive input, and proprioception can help us get to that just right level. Lots of everyday activities in the classroom include running errands, moving furniture, carrying books, doing chair or wall push-ups, and very importantly having movement breaks such as playtime activities and PE. Often when children haven't got PE or it's a wet break time, you will find that they're quite giddy and overexcited, and this is usually because they've not had their chance to have a movement break. Some children will find using weighted backpacks or weighted items such as lap pads helpful. There are lots of different resources you can explore in the end slide of this presentation. There are lots of different resources available to help you develop a sensory-friendly classroom and get the just right level for the children in your class. The Autism Education Trust has developed a sensory audit tool. Now, not all people with sensory sensitivities are autistic, but a lot of the strategies that can help will work for autistic people and for non-autistic people. Taking a look at your environment more in depth, this tool can help you frame different areas you can change. So looking at the light and the vision, the sounds and smells, the person's position within the room, the effect that other people might have on the child that's experiencing the sensitivities. Also, don't forget that visual supports can be very helpful for people with sensory sensitivities. It won't necessarily reduce the sensory sensitivity, but it'll help the individual know what's coming now and next and help them communicate their needs more effectively. There are lots of different activities to promote sensory regulation, and nearly every child within your class can benefit from them. But remember to follow your local policies and procedures and any risk assessments that need to be done. Some schools find a daily exercise programme like the Daily Mile or using the Sensory Circuits book useful to help them develop different activities at the start of the school day. Some schools use music, soft light and quiet time during breakfast club to ensure a calm start to the day. Others have mindfulness, yoga and meditation during lunch breaks or at after school club. Remember, this will work well for your sensory seeking children or your oversensitive children, but for your undersensitive children you might need to use different strategies to help raise them to their just right level. School staff tell us that attention and concentration is one of the main areas that their children with sensory sensitivities tend to struggle with. Some children find it very difficult to filter out sensory information. If we take a look at the picture below, it's a typical classroom scene where young people are sat at desks completing an activity. If you think about the level of distraction that each young child may face, there is the other people on the desk, their other work that is around them, the comfort or discomfort level of sitting on a chair that may be too big or too small for them. There's the visual distractions of the lighting and the decoration, and to a certain extent even the visual displays or the visual clutter around them. There will be the sound and noise of other children and other people, not only in the classroom but in other classrooms. Sometimes even having somebody cutting the grass on the playing field can be very distracting for children. There are lots of simple strategies that can help though. Using things like ear defenders or fidget toys on the carpet time routine. Privacy boards, which are boards that go on the desk, which can help the child or young person concentrate on the work in front of them. Using timers or visual schedules can help the child know how long that they have to spend on each task. using a wobble cushion so that they can wriggle and move on the chair as they need to. And for those children that struggle with chewing on their clothing or their pencils or other objects, there are items of jewellery you can buy which are designed to be chewed. These can be purchased from lots of different online outlets and are made by companies such as Jewellery or Chewy Gems. Additional resources and reading. Please remember that not all the resources listed will be suitable for all children. Please consider your child's needs when deciding which activities may help them and risk assess if it's required. If you require further advice, please contact the ISCAN Occupational Therapy team. The details are on the next slide.